There's a moment when everything stops, not physically, but deep inside you. When the job is gone, the relationship breaks, or nothing around you makes sense anymore. That's when it hits. The silence, the numbness, the panic. A life crisis isn't just about bad luck. It's about identity collapse. It's that terrifying realization that what once defined you no longer does. And it doesn't matter how old you are. You could be 20 and feeling lost in your future, or 50 and wondering if the past was all a mistake. Either way, the ground beneath you isn't solid anymore. And the question becomes, what do I do now? Some people pretend it's nothing. They scroll, they drink, they distract. Others crumble, spiraling into hopelessness, isolation, or depression. But some use it, not to go back to who they were, but to finally become who they were meant to be. This video is not just about survival, it's about transformation. Because hidden inside every crisis is a brutal invitation. Break down or break through. And if you're in that place right now, where nothing makes sense, where you're exhausted, disappointed, scared, then stay with me. Because you are not broken. You are just being forced to let go of what can no longer carry you. And what comes next might just be the most honest version of you the world has ever seen. When life collapses around you, the first instinct is to try to control it. Fix it, patch it, reverse it. We go looking for explanations. Why did this happen? Where did I go wrong? How do I get it all back? But what no one tells you is that during a crisis, the search for control is often what keeps you stuck. You see, for most of our lives, we've been told that with enough effort, we can shape the world. And that's true, to a point. But then something happens, something that cannot be controlled. An illness, a betrayal, a death, a breakdown, a sudden loss of meaning, and suddenly the systems you built to feel safe stop working. Your calendar, your achievements, your image, none of it can hold the storm. This is the beginning of the death of ego. It's not about your pride, it's about the mental structure that gave you a sense of predictability. When that ego cracks, it feels like a death because, in a way, it is. The person you were doesn't work here anymore. And in this confusion, many people panic. They try to glue the pieces of the old life back together. They chase the job that's already gone. They beg for the relationship that's already dead. They cling to the identity that no longer fits. But nothing resurrects. Nothing feels right. Because you're not meant to go backward. Here's the truth no one likes to hear. You never had control. You had routines, expectations, habits. But control? That was a story. And in the chaos of a life crisis, the story dies. And in its place is silence. Terrifying silence. But also pure possibility. Because once control is stripped away, you're left with something far more honest. Reality. What is, not what should be. And this is where the real work begins. Instead of asking, how do I get back to who I was? You start asking, who am I now? And that question doesn't have a quick answer. It requires patience, pain, observation, and it requires the courage to sit in the unknown, to not fix everything immediately, to not pretend it's all okay, but to actually feel what's happening. This is where most people run. But if you stay, if you breathe in the uncertainty, if you give up control not as a defeat, but as a gesture of surrender, then something powerful starts to emerge. Not the old self, not a better version of the past, but a completely new direction, rooted in what's real, not what's familiar. Let go of control. Let the illusion die. It's the first step in seeing what your life was actually built upon and what needs to be rebuilt from the foundation up. Here's the strange part of a life crisis that nobody warns you about. You will grieve, even if what you lost wasn't healthy or happy or even right for you. You'll grieve the job that burned you out, the relationship that made you feel small, the identity that was slowly suffocating you. Because it was yours, it was known. And in a world full of uncertainty, familiar pain often feels safer than unfamiliar freedom. Grief doesn't ask for your logic. It doesn't care that you shouldn't miss that person. It doesn't care that you know better. Grief simply arrives, and when it does, it will bring a storm of emotion: anger, sadness, nostalgia, guilt, even longing for things you never truly had. And that's okay. Let it come. There's a reason you feel that weight in your chest. It's not just the loss of a person, a place, or a role. It's the loss of a version of you that existed in that life. When someone leaves, when a plan fails, when a path disappears, so does the you that was walking it, and you have to mourn them too. People will tell you to move on, to stay strong, to be positive, but real healing doesn't come from bypassing grief. It comes from sitting with it, from letting the tears fall without shame, from screaming into pillows and whispering into the void, from acknowledging that something once mattered, even if it no longer serves you. This is not weakness. This is alchemy, because every honest tear you shed is truth being released. And truth, when fully felt, starts to purify the parts of you that were too afraid to change. You'll start to see the patterns. You'll realize what you accepted, tolerated, or pretended to love just to belong. You'll confront the parts of you that were playing a role just to keep things stable. And that realization, it'll sting, but it will also set you free. Because once grief has passed through you, it leaves behind something rare: clarity. The clarity of knowing what you can no longer carry. The clarity of realizing you survived what you thought would kill you. And the clarity of seeing your past for what it was, not a failure, but a teacher. So don't rush the mourning. Don't shame yourself for missing what you lost, even if part of you knows it needed to end. Cry for it, thank it, bury it with care. And then when the time comes, take your first step into the new unknown. Because grief isn't just about endings. It's also the beginning of finally telling the truth. In the middle of a life crisis, when everything familiar has fallen away, you are left with something most people spend their whole lives avoiding: yourself. No distractions, no roles to play, no applause to chase, just you. And that's terrifying, because most of us have never actually met ourselves without the mask. We define ourselves by our titles: student, partner, entrepreneur, parent. We define ourselves by our habits, morning routines, status updates, social calendars. We define ourselves by our relationships, how we are seen, how we are needed. But in a crisis, those mirrors vanish, and what's left behind is not a title, not a role, but a human being who's suddenly asking, "Who am I when no one's watching?" At first, the silence feels brutal. You feel empty, useless, invisible, because the life you knew validated your worth externally. But slowly, something strange begins to happen. You notice things: how you speak to yourself in the quiet moments, what you reach for when no one's guiding you, what you crave when the world isn't clapping. And then you begin to remember, not facts or memories, but you. Not the you that was shaped by expectation, but the version that was always there, waiting to be uncovered. You begin to hear the voice underneath the noise, not the voice of fear or doubt. Those are loud, but the quieter one. The one that says, I've always wanted to create. I'm tired of pretending. I want peace more than I want praise. That voice is the buried self, the real one, the one you abandon to fit in, to survive, to succeed. And it only speaks when things fall apart, because that's when it's finally safe to be heard. Meeting yourself in a crisis is not glamorous. There are no shortcuts, no grand epiphanies at first, just layers peeling back, illusions dissolving, and the awkward process of learning to live from the inside out, not the other way around. This is where authenticity is born, not from knowing who you are, but from no longer pretending to be who you're not. It's in the moment you admit, I don't know where I'm going, but also whisper, but I'm done going where I don't belong. It's not a clean process. There will be days you feel like you're making progress, and days you feel like you've lost everything again. But every moment spent in honesty is a step closer to alignment, to a life that doesn't just look good, but feels real. You will lose people in this process. You will confuse others who like the old version of you. But the people who remain, the path that emerges, the peace that slowly replaces the chaos, that's yours. Unfiltered, undeniable, unshakable. And once you've met the real you, you'll never want to go back to pretending again. There's a place darker than fear, deeper than sadness, a place where your dreams are dust, your motivation is gone, and your future feels like a blank page soaked in rain. It's called rock bottom, and while no one wishes for it, it may just be the most powerful place you'll ever stand. Because at rock bottom, everything unnecessary is stripped away. The image you clung to, gone. The roles you played to be loved, gone. The plans, the masks, the illusions of certainty, all gone. And what's left is raw, uncomfortable, exposed, but also real. You see, people think rock bottom is the end. They imagine it as failure, collapse, ruin. But in truth, rock bottom is not the end. It's the beginning without lies. It's the only place where you can build a life that's actually yours. You can't fake it here. You can't perform. You can't run. The only option is to face what's inside. And when you do, when you finally stop trying to escape your pain and start listening to it, you start to see that your crisis wasn't a punishment. It was an interruption, a divine disruption, a forced pause that made room for truth. Think about it. Before this breakdown, how many things were you tolerating? How many small betrayals of self did you commit every day just to get by? How many dreams did you shrink because you were afraid of disappointing others? How many times did you silence your inner voice just to keep the peace? Rock bottom reveals what you've been denying. It removes the cushions, it burns the safety nets, and in doing so, it gives you the clearest look you'll ever get at your real foundation. Because once you hit the bottom, you realize you survived. You lost what you thought you needed. And yet, you're still here, breathing, hurting, yes, but breathing. And that breath, that's life reminding you there's still more to learn, more to become, more to give. But this time, you're not building on sand. You're building on something solid. Because when you rise from rock bottom, you rise without illusion. You rise without the approval of the crowd. You rise not because someone told you to, but because something deep inside said, I'm not done yet. That's power, not the kind that looks flashy, the kind that's forged in the fire, quiet, certain, steady. So if you're there right now, if you're in the place where nothing makes sense and everything hurts, don't rush to escape it. Don't numb it. Sit in it. Let it work on you. Let it burn away what was false. Because when you do rise, you'll carry with you something unshakable, truth, and nothing can take that from you. After the collapse, there is always a quiet moment. Not relief, not resolution, just a space. Empty, open, and terrifying. This is where most people freeze, because the thought of rebuilding your life, when you're still grieving, still doubting, still fragile, feels impossible. You look at the wreckage and think, how could I ever start again? But here's the truth. You're not starting from scratch. You're starting from experience, from scars that now speak wisdom, from pain that has purified your priorities, from knowing finally what matters and what never did. Before, you were building on assumptions about who you should be, what success should look like, what love should feel like. Now, you're building on truth, and that makes all the difference, because this time, you won't waste energy chasing approval. You won't spend years in rooms where you feel invisible. You won't build relationships on silence or careers on fear. This time, you'll build slower, but stronger. Rebuilding begins quietly. It starts with small decisions, like waking up and making your bed, not because it fixes everything, but because it's one thing you can control, like eating something nourishing, even when you feel numb, like going for a walk, like writing one honest sentence. These acts seem meaningless, but they are sacred, because every small act of rebuilding is a vote for your future. A future that hasn't revealed itself yet, but is waiting for you to choose it. And here's something even more powerful. You're not who you were. You're wiser now. You've seen what breaks. You've felt what pretending costs. You've learned what you can live without and what you can't. You now carry a deeper compass, the kind that doesn't come from books or advice columns, but from standing in your own ashes and saying, not this, never again. That voice inside, the one whispering that you were made for more, it's not ambition, it's remembrance. It's the soul reclaiming its place in your decisions. So yes, the rebuilding will be slow. You will question yourself. You will have days where you relapse into doubt, fear, and old coping patterns. That's part of it. Don't shame the process. Just keep choosing the next right thing. Not the next big thing, the next right thing. Brick by brick, you will build something that doesn't just survive the storm, but honors it. You will create not a return to the past, but a response to the present. And when people ask how you did it, you'll smile, because they will never fully understand how much of you died, so the rest of you could finally live. The moment you start to stand again, people will notice. They'll say things like, "You seem better now." I'm so glad that's behind you. Back to normal, right? But here's the thing. There is no normal to return to, and healing, real healing, is not something you can fast forward. The world is uncomfortable with long stories. It wants a clean arc, struggle, recovery, redemption. But life doesn't move in 3 acts. It unfolds in spirals. You rise, you fall, you rise again, but each time with a slightly deeper truth in your hands. People will mean well. They'll encourage you to stay positive, to focus on the future, to let it go. But what they often don't realize is that true healing is not linear. It's sacred and slow and deeply personal. You'll have days where you smile and feel light again. You'll laugh in a way that feels unfamiliar, like your soul remembering how to stretch. Then suddenly, without warning, a song, a scent, a memory, and you're back in the ache. That doesn't mean you're broken. It means you're still becoming. Because healing isn't about erasing pain. It's about integrating it. learning to carry it differently, not as a weight, but as a reminder of how far you've come, of what you survived, of what you will never again settle for. The world might urge you to move on, to get productive, to look whole. But there's a difference between looking healed and being healed. One is performance, the other is presence. And presence requires that you slow down, that you honor your timeline, not theirs, that you say, "I'm not ready yet," and mean it, that you protect your energy as fiercely as you once protected your pain. Because here's the truth, you don't owe anyone a finished version of you. You don't need to explain why you're still quiet, why your circle is smaller, why your ambitions have changed. You are allowed to evolve without permission. So give yourself grace. If today you're tired, rest. If today you're angry, feel it. If today you're hopeful, cherish it. But don't force the next chapter just because others are impatient with the one you're in. This season is not a detour, it's the path. And it's shaping you into someone who doesn't just survive the world, but walks through it with unshakable presence. You are healing, not on their schedule, but on truths. You thought it was the end. You looked at the broken pieces of your life and saw a wall, tall, cold, impossible to climb. You thought, this is it. I've lost too much. I'll never get through this. But now you're beginning to see it differently. This wasn't a wall, it was a door. And the crisis, it was the key. Not a key you wanted, not a gentle invitation, but a ruthless, painful, soul-altering shove that forced you to unlock the part of yourself you'd hidden away for years. And that door, it didn't open to the life you had. It opened to the life you were meant to live. One not built on autopilot, not built for approval, but one built on clarity, on depth, on the refusal to abandon yourself ever again. You don't emerge from a crisis as the same person. You emerge stripped down, rebuilt, reborn. You stop chasing illusions. You stop mistaking noise for meaning. You start choosing differently because now you see differently. You see that you don't need as much as you thought. That stillness is not the enemy. That solitude isn't loneliness. It's space. Space to reconnect with yourself. Space to ask, what do I want really? And who am I without the mask? You start to notice the people who make you feel seen, the environments that drain you, the habits that nourish your soul instead of just distracting your mind. And most of all, you begin to trust something you forgot to believe in, yourself, not the curated version, not the one you learned to perform, but the real one, the one who survived, the one who sat in the fire and chose not to run, the one who said, even now I rise. Because that's what this crisis gave you. It didn't just take things away, it gave you yourself, unpolished, undeniable, unshaken. So now you walk forward, not with answers, but with alignment, not with perfection, but with presence. And every step you take is different because it's not a return, it's a rebirth. The people around you may not fully understand what happened. They'll see you smile again, work again, love again, but they won't see the quiet vow you made. The vow to never betray yourself just to fit in. The vow to never again chase a life that looks good but feels empty. Because now you know. The wall was never meant to trap you. It was meant to test you. And on the other side of that test is truth, peace, and a life that finally makes sense. Because this time, it's yours.